Good evening, everybody. This is the Wellington Sustainability and Energy Committee meeting for May 12th, 2025. It is 7:03 p.m. and this meeting will come to order. Determination of quorum status. We have a quorum. All four current members are available or present. Old business. I want to table that again. I have not gotten any kind of a estimate as to any heat pump costs for any one of our large buildings in town. And so I really can't do much with that letter until we have that data. But under new business, I do have something that I would like to discuss that's not listed here. Do I need to do a
Agenda
Motion.
mod?
yeah, do I need to do an agenda change to add something to new business? Because I would like to.
I think that we should, and we'll put that right after, well, actually, we already start. There was nobody present to speak. And so we're an old business, and I guess we'll stick it in, before, item B, 4B. Okay.
I'm sorry,
This-
before
this will
item
be a
4B.
motion.
No, we don't have to have that under old business. I'm talking new business. We'll just put it as 5D, under new business.
Yeah, do you want to do that agenda when we get to new
Yeah, I'll
business?
make a motion. I want to make a motion that we amend the agenda to add a new category 5D and discuss John Murrow, our energy broker that we have a contract with for the town. I had an extensive conversation with him. And I wanted to report to the committee on my conversation with John Murrow.
Okay. I'm
Do
just
I have a
trying to
second?
figure where to put it in the minutes. That's the only reason I sound confused. Okay, so
Okay,
you want to make a motion to,
add an
go ahead,
agenda
make,
item.
go ahead and make the motion and I'll figure out a way to
Why,
stick it in.
why don't we just call this the first order of business after determining quorum status for minutes purposes? And here's my
Okay,
motion.
yeah,
I move that we add an agenda item 5D to discuss our town's current energy broker, John Murrow, M-U-R-O.
MORO,
M-U-R-O.
MURO. Discuss Willington's energy broker,
Yes.
our OW broker. Okay, you can run
Do I have
through
a second?
I'll make a second.
Okay, a motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of adding item 5D to the agenda for this evening, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Bill, I'm gonna believe you had your hand up.
Yep.
Oh, look, your hand is up. I like that. Okay, so we had gotten to old business. I can't do anything with my revised letter until we get some information on actual energy needs from an engineer for some of our buildings. And so 4B, discussion on status to pass along information to townspeople about Connecticut's 2025 cheaper rebate program for new and used electric hybrid vehicles. Bill, were you gonna put something like that together, or do you have a brochure?
I've begun a document and had Don take a look at it, and I need to make a few changes, but I've got spelled out in it the parameters of the cheaper program and how different vehicles can be eligible, used and new,
Mhm.
and how people can qualify on varying basis of either income or geographic location. And also see, I went over new and used. Oh, address the MSRP on it. And Don suggested that I should add to it electric bikes, because there is a cheaper rebate for electric bikes.
Oh,
Well,
cool.
So it's
Well,
kind
other
of still
than
in process.
yeah, other than the
All right,
fact
well,
that I'm sorry.
go ahead, Donna, sir.
No, I was gonna say the e-bike, under cheaper presently is, well, for lack of a better term, sold out. So we'll see whether or not, what the
funds.
next tranche of funds has to say.
Mhm. Okay. All right, so if that is still in process, we'll table that until next month. Yes,
Yes.
okay. Discuss status of updating our WISE webpage, including status on posting commissioner names, terms, and positions. I haven't done any of that yet, but I did send out prior to the meeting a PDF with my suggested text for our homepage. If we want to take a look at that and make some edits to it, I'm happy to do that. Want me to share my screen?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, is it sharing?
Nope.
Not yet.
Not yet. Double click to enter full, oh, that's for me. Okay. All we got is the Zoom 2 has started screen sharing, but it's black.
I think I can see it now.
Not good for you.
Yeah, I
And
can't
I
see
may
it.
have a copy. I have a copy of it here probably.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, there we
came up.
are. Okay.
All right. Yeah, you guys can see this?
I read through it and I had a few suggestions.
Sure. What do you got?
Other than maybe calling ourselves WiseCom, which we're not going to do. I thought maybe we'd put wise in parens right after the heading, and then it would make more sense in the first line of your document.
Okay.
And then I thought it would be nice to bold education, improvement, and change, maybe.
Okay.
And then the second to last paragraph, I'm trying to remember how I had it in my mind, but I wanted to say something about reappointed in there. So two of the original members were reappointed and still serve on the committee.
Okay. Also, one thing I wanted to know, Don, do you want to use Donberg or Donald? And Bill and Bill, do you
You
want to
can
use
use
Bill or William? Don's fine.
Don is fine.
Okay.
Bill,
Uh,
Bill
Bill is
Lucian,
fine.
is Bill okay, or do you want to use William?
Bill is fine.
And Bill Bennell, is Bill okay?
And why don't I use William Bennell there?
Okay.
That way it'll be easy to differentiate.
Oh, no one's going to convince you with Bill Lucian. Come on.
Now, I think in the minutes, Bill Lucian is referred to as W. Lucian. I don't recall for sure, but
Really?
probably the case.
Okay, and then my last paragraph, that is certainly open to change. I just threw something there just to have something. So what do you think of, please watch this space for informative articles? Because the cheaper article would go up onto our webpage when it's ready,
Yeah, I want to go back to the previous paragraph, but since you're on
sure.
the last
Yeah.
paragraph, we'll wrap that one up with my thoughts.
Yeah.
You probably gave it a lot of thought in the last word in that document, usage. I would probably say use. Okay. Now, when you go up to the previous paragraph, you didn't include reappointed. I would say after Lucian are both, and I would say reappointed and still active members.
How about are both still active members having been recently reappointed?
That's excellent.
Damn caps lock.
And maybe at the very end there, the fourth word from the end, stick in also.
Like so.
Oh, maybe not also because we're reappointed and you are appointed. So maybe also was not a proper word to use. Just say
Okay.
that looks good there. Okay, that's all. That's my thoughts.
Okay, anybody else?
Nope,
Anyone disagree with what Don said?
no,
Um, the only navigation part that I'd say is federal incentives and the changes they're all going through. But it's probably better to say nothing.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be specific about anything here. This is just, what are we about? And then, how about we do the current members right here?
I know what I want to do also. After in the very beginning, after Energy Advisory Committee, can you put in parens AEC, EAC?
Sure.
Hit the space. Okay.
So, does everybody know their expiration date?
It's 4 years, right?
Not necessarily.
thought that was between me and God.
Wise Committee. Appointments to the Wise Board.
I believe mine is up in November of 2025. I think they just gave me 1 year. The last time that I asked them.
Wow. I don't have it in my files. Interesting. That's odd. Well, it's odd only that I thought I would have had it. I'll have to get you that information.
All right. Let's everybody
The
collect
clerks
up. I
have
don't know mine either. Let's everybody collect up our term expiration dates and I'll add those in here. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the clerk should have that information, but, I should have it too because I was reappointed. Okay. Oh, no, okay. Sorry for this distraction. Okay.
Okay, so we'll get the member list and I'll get that up on their website as well.
You don't mind if
any-
I can't, you don't mind if I contact the clerks and ask them for that information?
Not at all. Not at all. That'd be great. If you ask for all 4 of us, just so we have it all
Yeah,
accurate.
that's right.
Perfect. Thank you. This last paragraph, please watch this space for informative articles. That would be our cheaper rebate plus anything else we decide to add as we, you just sent out that solar map thing from CT Greenbank. That can go up on our webpage as something that people can download, right?
I suppose they can, although I've already modified the original one from the Green Bank because well, first of all, I found an error in their November submittal, so I fixed that. And then I reworded a little bit on slide 22 because only the Green Bank knows what their words mean sometimes. So I actually included the prior version and the most recent version about 10 minutes later that actually more clearly spells out the 4 different options. And we can talk about that when we get to
Okay.
that.
So in any case, this final paragraph, do we want to make any changes here or do we want to call it good enough for now? And I'll publish this next time I have an opportunity.
I think it's good.
Looks good.
I agree.
Okay, then I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the homepage as modified during this meeting.
I'll
A
second.
second.
Do I have a second? Okay, Bill Bennell seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of using the document as modified in this meeting, please vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Now, who
Thanks.
did that? I'm sorry.
John did the motion, I seconded.
Is that a Bill Bennell second?
Yeah, Bill Bennell second.
And that was what the motion was, to accept the, I'm only asking this because the recording failed last time.
Uh,
You seconded it and unanimous. And what was the
Yes.
motion?
Except the as written. The
To
webpage as written.
accept the modifications to the web homepage document as modified during this meeting.
Okay.
You still need that up there, John?
No, I'm gonna stop sharing.
Okay.
Okay, I was distracted because I was looking at the agenda and realized that Solar Map and Button Hill wasn't under old business.
Okay, then
And
let's
I
make a
would-
motion to put it under old business right now.
Let's finish it up. Let's finish up D, I guess. And then
Okay.
we'll make a motion to add item E.
Okay. So, discuss any quantity information regarding organic waste generated in Wellington. I don't have any stats on that. Does anybody else have any stats on that?
I
The-
said that I would make a call to the superintendent of schools, but I have not done that.
Okay, so
Okay.
there's no movement on that just yet.
So I did not invite anybody to talk to us about it until we had that information, as I
Yeah.
had
One
expressed.
of
I
the
believe
thoughts
in
that
my-
One of the thoughts that I had was, why would a compost machine have to be located at the transfer station? If the school is the major provider of inputs to the compost machine, can we find some space outside the school to set up the compost machine? That way, there's no trucking of mass quantities of compostables from the school to the transfer station. We just do it right there. And if citizens wanted to come by and drop off their compostables, we can set a time that somebody would be there. Obviously, the machine will have to be maintained, so the company that owns it is going to have to come out at certain times to perform maintenance or to run things or to empty it out or whatever they need to do. While they're there, I would suggest that citizens could come by and drop off compostables. Yes, Bill.
What will the lawyers say?
About locating it at the school or about having
About
people come by?
having John Q. Public have access to it?
I don't think the lawyers would have anything terrible to say about it. They're not going into the school while it's closed or anything along those lines.
No, I'm just thinking of, like implied liability to the town.
Well, it's public space, right? Public property. I don't think
Yeah,
it's
it's
public
restricted.
I mean,
property. Yeah.
it'd be a great concept as long as somebody doesn't, tie it up legalistically.
Unsupervised access is one of my concerns. Garbage on the ground is another. Just to speak of realities. It's a good, I mean, I think it's a valid idea to put it at the schools. At the
Okay.
school, I don't
It's
know.
very
which
logical.
school, but there is the issue of the public accessing it.
I think it'd be interesting to find out if it's even like cost effective or viable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
that's-
Yeah,
kinda worry
that's
about
why
the-
we need
worry
to
about
know.
worry
Yeah.
about the other stuff as a
Right,
second.
we need to know
step.
volumes. We need to know how much volume of trash is going to be reduced from our trash hauling bill. And does that make up the $500 a month that this system's going to cost us?
Mhm.
If it saves us $1,000 a month, hey, great. Well, now we're saving $500 a month because it costs us $5, but it saves us $1,000. If it saves us negative $250, now we're out $750 a month for nothing. So clearly we need to know more about volumes we can generate and how much the system will save us. Yes, Bill.
Some guidance when I place this call. I could explain the concept, but it'll probably be somewhat novel and might be outside of the normal areas of knowledge about how much weight is generated by this form of waste. So I'm wondering how I might be able to guide him or guide anyone in that facility to give us an idea what kind of volume and or weight we're looking at.
You talking about when you call you're
When I
gonna call
place a
Bill?
call, if I wanted to, if they don't have the information I need because of, they're this unfamiliar territory, I'm wondering how I might be able to, give them some guidance to provide us with information like that, help them along, as it were.
I would say, ask them what volume of trash they're currently sending to the landfill or currently having hauled away in their dumpsters. They should be
Mhm.
able to provide us with an estimate of how many
Yeah, current haulage. Yep.
tons are getting hauled. And then from there, we would have to do a ballpark estimate of how much of that is potentially compostable.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know what they use for paper plates, but it could be that their paper plates are even compostable. So
Yeah.
I don't even know if they use paper plates. If they're using foam plates, forget it. They're not compostable. So
So current haulage, what types of servingware are employed?
yeah, yeah, exactly. We need to know the nature of what they're throwing away so that we can gain an
Yeah.
estimate of what we think is the tonnage
Yeah.
that could be reduced by a composting system.
Okay.
Anything further on item D? Okay, hearing nothing. I will make a motion that we add a new agenda item. Under old business, we will add 4E, discussion of the solar map for, I'm sorry, Don, was that for Button Hill?
I was gonna say for the senior complex, since it really may
Senior complex.
incorporate everything.
Okay.
So to discuss
Okay.
solar at the senior complex.
Okay, so we will add 4E, discussion of solar at the senior complex. Do I have a
And that's
second?
Second,
Okay,
Bill
I made the
Luschan,
motion.
okay.
Bill Luschan seconded. The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
No,
Hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of adding item 4E, a discussion of solar at the senior complex, please say aye. Aye.
aye.
aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Which
Okay,
brings us to item 4E. What do you
All
got,
right.
Bill? Done?
So smooth.
yeah, I included the Green Bank's assessment of solar lease and solar loan. And if you open up the email that I sent to you about 5 minutes to 7, there's one of them that has clarify or clarity in the file name. And that's probably the best one to open up because when you look at page slide 22 for this, which is their summary page, how they choose to name these things, I found confusing after reviewing it probably a dozen times. And it made it clear to me why when they gave us the presentation back in 2024, I kind of walked away numb and we made no decisions or recommendations on what we could do there. So if you have that open, you'll see that there's the lease with yield adjustments, adding a battery and solar loan, and with yield adjustments. And the experts that did our analysis, Green Bank felt that they were rather generous in their production estimates, so they wound down the production estimates to somewhere of a factor, I think about 1.2, if that means anything to anybody. It's sort of a good way to come up with a KW to KWH conversion. So I think that the yield, anyhow, I think that the yield adjustments the Green Bank made are legitimate. So it really just brings it down to three comparisons, but two in this chart on slide 22. The 30% ITC solar only lease with yield adjustments, and 30% ITC solar loan with yield adjustments. And basically, because of the program it's under, we have to contribute to the tenants money to improve their energy efficiency or other monies. There's a list of 10 items that the tenants can spend money on in order to use this program that pays 37 cents and change per kilowatt hour, as opposed to the regular netting program that may offer, I think, about 25 cents. I'm not really sure. So anyhow, I just thought I'd introduce you to this. It looks like what we're probably going to do at Button Hill is the solar only lease, which doesn't pay as well as the loan. But if we do the loan and you were to scroll up to one of the previous pages, doesn't make sense for your site. I'd say slide 8 gives you the pros and cons of either a lease or a loan. I mean, if we lease it, they kind of manage the whole thing. They maintain it. They remove it in 20 years, and we get a little bit of money for our tenants. Now, this is all based on 42 kW, and I've been waiting for weeks and weeks to find out whether we base it on 42 kW. Our other alternative, we know, is that we could base it on adding for heat pumps and car chargers, although I don't know that we know whether we have to put in 24 car chargers or 2 in order to take the yield adjustment, KW adjustment factor. I'm sorry, I'm confusing about this. But if we take a loan, we have to borrow the money, which may be difficult. We have to maintain the system, which may be difficult. We have to manage it, which may be difficult for our management team.
As far, Don, as far as O&M is concerned, operations and maintenance, it's not difficult at all. It costs money. You sign at the time that you build your system, you sign an operations and maintenance contract with the person who builds it. And for a set fee every year, they come in and make sure that everything's running correctly. Most work should be covered under warranty. If, say, an inverter burns out or something, that's something that they should handle just as a matter of course. But as far as an O&M is concerned, you would just sign an O&M contract. It would cost money and therefore eat into the proceeds that you're looking at. I think I agree with you that the more attractive option is the solar lease because there's no upfront outlay, and it's easier to accomplish by far. However, you're leaving $33,000 on the table, $31,000 actually, because the tenant portion goes down a little bit, which is also a considerable sum. But I think I agree with you on the solar lease. Anybody else have any thoughts there?
Leases are usually a good deal with the energy projects. I've done a few before. I put a fuel cell in when I worked at Wiremold, and the lease was definitely the way to go because then you have better guarantees on the functionality of it. Because usually there's stipulations in there that if you're not getting the energy production that was guaranteed, usually there's, you don't have to pay.
Yeah, there's a penalty clause or a way to recoup those funds. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, and when you own something as opposed to leasing it, there's usually new ways to explore your responsibility for it that the manufacturer doesn't make known upfront.
Yeah, and
one thing that I found out, I'm sorry, just as an aside, one thing I found out recently, we've been selling microinverters from a company called Enphase for years, and those microinverters have a 25-year warranty on them. We thought that was fantastic. The supporting infrastructure that goes with those microinverters, they're only warrantying those for 5 years. So, your combiner box burns out. Oh, sorry, you got a big expense now for a new combiner box. Which, yeah, that hurts. And that's like, it seems underhanded to me. If you're saying this is a 25-year warranty, the whole goddamn system should be a 25-year warranty.
You're buying a system.
Yeah. So I'm in that boat. I have at my house, I have Enphase equipment. I have an Enphase combiner box outside of my house. So I hope it doesn't burn out.
As
It's
well
been there
as
for
the
3 years
wiring
now.
harness, right?
Pardon me?
As well as the wiring harness, you hope doesn't burn out or short?
Well, yeah, I don't think there's any danger of the wiring harness burning out, but the combiner box certainly can and does. They do burn out. So,
Oh, they do, okay.
Yeah.
I was just gonna read the cons to the loan, just that were on slide 8. It's a direct purchase, so we gotta borrow the money, and our bank may or may not go along with that. Got debt added to the balance sheet. Need lender consent, O&M, need insurance on it too. So that eats into the 31 grand. I'm not sure how much. And the removal of the system at the end is our responsibility. Normally, I'd like to keep it, but since it's all in front of the meter, at 20 years, their counting mechanism shuts off. And even if we generate, I guess we could generate power in a nickel a kilowatt hour.
Don, is that a Connecticut thing? Because that's certainly not the way it is in Massachusetts where I work. You
With
get
regards
you got
to-
solar producing, you're producing power and you get credit for it.
I think actually we will probably continue to get 5 cents a kilowatt hour or whatever they're paying.
No,
for the
no,
solar.
you should get net metering, whatever the net metering is.
Well, we're in front of the meter, not behind it. So
Oh, okay, yeah. So yes, so yeah. In that case, if you're doing the buy all sell all program, that is a 20-year program. You're right. I'm sorry,
and I was,
but you would get
given where
wholesale
we're
rate.
at, given where we're at with in front of the meter and behind the meter, the fact that this is in front of the meter, I wonder whether we should go behind the meter and try to get interconnection agreements that would last. Well, they probably only last 20 years too, but they're maybe renewable in that I would
Is-
like to have 40 to 60 years worth of even a nickel a kilowatt hour. And
As far as I know,
behind-
they're not expired. Your interconnection agreement doesn't expire.
Okay. So that, maybe we should get paid less upfront and put some solar behind the meter. So that if we run heat pumps, we can at least power them with the sun during the day. I got a feeling that our Eversource will not want to bank solar credits for us after 20 years.
You know what? We earlier added item 5D to discuss John Murrow, and it sounds to me like John Murrow might be an ideal person to talk to about all of this. So do you want to table the rest of this discussion until we talk about item 5D? I really think that if he doesn't have, if the company he works for doesn't have the ability to do what we're trying to do here, he would at least have good advice for how we should be proceeding.
That's probably wise. And do we want to have a special meeting and bring him in?
That was one of the things I wanted to discuss, was having him come to our next meeting. I don't know that we need a special meeting, but if we want to have him come to our next meeting in June, we can do that. But that's again, that's something for 5D.
I mean, this is all moving very slowly, unfortunately, and I don't know where the federal tax credits are going. Other than I presume they're going away when the new tax season starts. And
Yeah, the budget negotiations are underway right now. But they typically don't change tax credits during the tax year. So anything that they do is going to be next year at the earliest.
right, and I think that if we do the lease, the other advantage of the lease is that federal tax credit is probably not our responsibility.
No, it's not. Under a lease, the
so-
leasing company gets this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see.
Yeah, okay. I'm still waiting to find out whether or not we can include the town buildings in our total kilowatt hours before I even ask the town if they want those kilowatt hour historical values to remain in their possession, or whether they want let us use
Yeah.
them, or whether we pay them something for them or whatever.
Yeah,
That's still up
that's
in the
something I
air.
also don't understand, Don. If this is a lease and it's in front of the meter, so you're just leasing the land to them, correct?
Yes, and it ends up
Yeah.
being the selectmen's land and not
Yeah.
Button Hills at this
So,
point. Yeah.
but that's my point. What do the energy bills have to do with this lease? It's not behind the meter, so the bills are what is behind the meter. Why do the bills matter to something that's in front of the meter?
I think it's because it's Appendix G for the affordable multifamily housing criteria that pays 37 cents and change for your power generated because you are a affordable multifamily project. Otherwise, you'd probably be getting 20 cents or 25 cents a kilowatt hour.
Okay, so that's where they get to 37 cents per kilowatt hour so they basically have Eversource as their off taker for any power they produce.
Right.
And they're getting
And the
37 cents
and the
from
size,
Eversource.
yeah,
They're
and the
getting
size of the
37
system.
cents from Eversource as opposed to the 32 cents Eversource gives everybody else.
Is it 32 that they're giving everybody
Yeah.
else? Okay,
Yeah, it's
well,
32.
that's
Right, it was. The last time I looked, I was looking at adding some solar at my house. Because I already have a net metering solution, they'll only let me do the buy all, sell all. So, if I were to do that, I would put solar on, say, a carport out on my driveway, and I would get 32 cents a kilowatt hour for
do
anything I
they
produce.
do they also limit you to your historical 12-month usage, and you can't put up any more than maybe 5% more?
Not that I know of, and that whole thing with limitations based on historical usage just strikes me as flying in the face of logic. If I don't historically use a whole lot of electricity because I was heating with fossil fuels, for instance, if I were to stop heating with fossil fuels and go to electric like I did, then certainly my usage is going to go up. But that's neither here nor there. They should allow me to do that
They
and
do.
and and gain solar to offset my new usage.
They do. And they do differentiate what you can add to your historical usage for both air source or ground source heat pumps in a little chart where you get X number of kilowatt hours adder for each apartment.
Yeah,
So
they should just leave us alone and let us go solar. That's my point.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, other than the fact that I generate 10,000 kilowatt hours extra on mine, I'm probably the exception that caused them to make a
So,
historical kilowatt hour usage rule.
so do you have like a giant credit balance with them right now?
I usually get about a $500 or $600 balance each year.
All right,
That
they send you a check for it or no?
say again, they send me what?
Do they send you a check for that balance?
They could, but this last year, I think I left it all in and it covered my combined benefits charges that were a bit exorbitant. So I used most of that $600 balance up through the course of the year, is my
Okay.
recollection. I may have taken a
Okay.
check for a few $100. I don't recall.
Right.
Okay, so
But still, you're making out, so yeah.
I mean, and the other thing I wanted to mention is just to make it more confusing. There's two different programs under the Connecticut Green Bank. One of them is a solar map. The other one is one where Earthlight comes in and says, okay, we're going to take all your historical kilowatt hour usage, add whatever we can, and then we're going to put it in. And I think our residents got like $225,000, and we, as Button Hill, saw a lease payment of $32,000. I was looking for that file, I couldn't find it. So, well, it's nice to give our tenants a lot of money, and they'll probably spend it mostly on their internet connections. Button Hill gets essentially squat for a really huge system. And then I got to
Hmm.
sell it to the selectmen still saying, geez, can we either move our lease line or can we put the system over our lease line? And then I need to talk to Willington Woods to find out whether or not they want to join with us or whether they want to keep their own historical usage for future solar, although their roof is full, but who knows what else is available for energy producing equipment. And maybe then we can locate some near the septic, but it's all outside of our leased area, so that's just another hoop.
Yeah.
So that's
I gotta
where
tell you,
that's
Don,
all-
I do like the proposal in here with the battery, because it gives you 72 hours of backup. You didn't want to go for that one?
Well, there's no payment to anybody there.
Yeah.
It didn't pencil
Yeah,
out
so
in any way.
basically the battery cost is being eaten up by what would have been paid to the property owners and tenants.
Yeah. So instead of seeing $100,000, we see nothing, but we get batteries.
Hmm.
Which are expensive to replace.
Right, and they're good for like 12, 15 years, I guess.
Something along those lines, yeah.
And then, and I don't know if there's any O&M on those or not.
Yeah, it probably is. But if it's a lease, they would be taking care of it.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's a lease or a purchase. I have to go back and look at some of the previous pages.
Yeah, it doesn't list it in here.
So, I mean, I just sort of
Right.
wanted to introduce you to this.
Yeah, I really do think that we should ask John Morrow to take a look at this.
Okay.
He'll have good advice, I'm certain of it.
And I would think that we'd be better off to give it to him ahead of the meeting.
Yeah, yeah. But let's
I-
discuss that when we get to 5D.
Okay, and I don't know whether there's any urgency to this or not, based on the fact that it's been dragging for so long. You kind of say, what's an extra couple weeks? Unless he wants to, unless he wants to go over it next week, but I probably won't have any information by then as to whose kilowatt hours, whose historical kilowatt hours we can use or not use. And
Okay.
that's the end.
All right,
That's all
let's,
I really want to say about that.
Are we good to go then on 4E?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on. Under new business, 5A, discuss the merits of maybe adding solar hot water to Button Hill or other town buildings. Solar hot water is an interesting case. The technology is well proven. It's thousands of years old. People have been heating water with the sun since like 2,000 or 3,000 years have gone with people doing that trick. But part of the problem with it is that your energy spend, like if let's say that I still had my oil burner downstairs. When I moved in here, I had an oil burner, and that oil burner provided me with hot water and heat. Okay. The amount of money I was spending on oil for my hot water was probably about 10 to 12% of my oil spend. The rest of that money went to heat. So while it works fantastically, there's just not a giant opportunity to save. If you're looking for a way to save money on hot water, you're better off to put in a heat pump water tank with sufficient solar panels to power it. Then you get free hot water. And it's more reliable because you're using electricity to run the heat. You don't have plumbing going up over your roof, and heat exchangers, etc. So that would be my recommendation if you were looking for to economize on hot water. I would look to heat pump water heaters. They're also available, or they also have tax credits available, and typically rebates are available through the utilities for them as well. Solar hot water, don't get me wrong, it works great, but the modern systems use evacuated tubes instead of the older systems. The Jimmy Carter era solar power they're just a black panel with black pipes, and you run antifreeze through it, and you have a heat exchanger and a preheat tank downstairs. And so the antifreeze gets heated up on the roof, and the heat exchanger heats the water in the basement, and then sends the cooler antifreeze back up to the roof to get heated again. That's how they work. They work great. I'm not poo-pooing them at all. But people have gotten away from them. One reason being that the typical antifreeze fired solar water heater doesn't work so well in the wintertime. The sun is at a lower angle in the sky. It's up for much less time, and there's more cloudy days in the wintertime. So there's a number of factors that cause it to not work so well during the winter. So you do need some kind of a backup on it anyhow. Yes, Bill.
So what kind of temperature can it generate just off of the rooftop in the summer? Does it get up to 120 or 130?
Yeah, you can get up to around 120, 130. You can get really good hot water in the summertime. But the where I was going with this was, I'm sorry, what?
For a limited amount of water.
Yeah, for maybe 80 gallons of water, whatever whatever the size of your water tank is. Where people have in the Northeast specifically, or in the northern climates where it gets cold in the wintertime, people have switched to what are called evacuated tube hot water systems. They're much more expensive than the old Jimmy Carter era hot water heaters, or I'm sorry, solar water heaters. What they do is they have a giant glass tube that they remove all the air out of it and make it a vacuum tube. And they put that vacuum tube in an array on the roof, in a box on the roof, and the element inside that vacuum gets heated by the sun. And because it's a vacuum, it doesn't transfer any heat out. It doesn't lose heat in the wintertime. The big problem with the antifreeze fired ones is that they radiate heat all winter long, so they lose heat before it gets down into your water preheat tank. These evacuated tubes work better from the perspective of you don't lose the heat in the wintertime, but they also don't work as well because they don't last as long. The seals that keep that tube vacuum pressure, they keep the vacuum in that tube, they break down over time. They're sitting out in the sun. They don't last more than 8 or 10 years. Whereas the Carter era water heaters, you drive around, you might see some on some roofs. They're still here 50 years later. Bill, Don, you got one.
I've got
Yes.
three panels on my roof. Been there a long time.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they last forever. I'm not poo-pooing them at all. The two problems that I see with them is well, because it was oil, a lot, or at least in the Northeast, a lot of people use oil for heating. There was no way to get a utility to give any kind of a rebate for someone that wasn't going to use less oil, because each oil provider is an oil provider. He's not going to be involved in giving rebates for people to use less of his product. So there's no opportunity for rebates with solar hot water that you have with solar electricity. And again, the whole thing about losing heat in the wintertime, they go to these evacuated tubes, which they work great for a little while, and then when the tube breaks down, they don't work any better than Jimmy Carter era stuff. Yes, Bill.
John, do they ever marry up tankless oil heaters with the heat pump hot water heaters?
Tankless oil.
I don't know why you would do that.
I was just thinking of whether or not the classic or the currently offered heat pump hot water heater would be able to keep up with heating baseboard as well as heating hot water domestically.
No, heating baseboard requires temperature between 170 and 190 to adequately provide heat. And your typical water heater won't. Mine, I don't think is set at. I think it's set at 110. It's not, at any super hot level. It would cost an awful lot to heat your water to be hot enough to use with
You
baseboard.
have to have different circuits.
Yeah.
Baseboard circuit and then a domestic hot water circuit.
Yeah, the situation that I had was the reservoir of water inside my furnace was kept at 190 degrees, and the hot water tapped into that to get to provide hot water to the house, but it taps in with what was called a mix down valve, There's a valve sitting in the
Yeah.
middle of the pipe that's tapping into that mixes in cold water to prevent scalds from happening, because
Yep.
you can't send 170-degree water up to my sink.
Correct.
You know, I'll burn myself, or I'll give the baby a bath and burn the baby. You know,
Mhm.
you can't have that kind of temperature of water in your house. And so they have these mix down valves that mix in cold water with it,
Right. Yep.
and prevent that from happening. But still, you're using oil to heat that water to that temperature, and that's your problem right there is oil.
So then, say someone like me, I would need to replumb to separate my domestic hot water from my
From
oil,
your furnace.
from my boiler box.
I
Yes.
think it already is. I mean, you've
Mm.
got a tankless coil, John, or you had a tankless coil, which is separates your domestic baseboard, I should say, your baseboard hot water from your potable hot water.
Are you talking to
that
John or
tankless
me?
coil. Well, John, I was talking to John and the fact that they're two separate circuits. One of them, for your domestic hot water, typically it's a tankless coil or a
Yep.
indirect hot water heater that has a coil in the bottom of that storage tank, so
Yep.
that your potable water never mixes with your
Yeah, with the
baseboard water.
baseboard water. Yeah, you can't have that. But still, that water that comes out of the furnace is too hot to send upstairs. That's hence the mix down valve, the
Mhm.
need for mix down valve.
And
Yeah, I've
I
also
a
had
couple of-
I also had a water heater that ran as a separate zone on a furnace. And so the furnace just sent hot water into a heat exchanger in that tank. And indirectly, I was using oil to heat my water. But it was just a separate zone. I had like a 3 zones on the house, and they added a 4th zone valve for the water heater, so that I would
Yep.
have adequate hot water
Went from having a tankless hot water heater to a tanked hot water heater.
to a tank.
Yeah.
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 That's what I have, yeah.
Yeah, I highly recommend heat pump water heaters. I've got one. It's fantastic.
Well, the problem we have, I'm thinking more about Button Hill, although in general, maybe town buildings could utilize some solar hot water. The advantages I see, well, first of all, the tankless water heater is an interesting concept because we have tanked water heaters right now, each one being 100,000 BTUs. So certainly, solar's going to have a tough time keeping up with that. We're going to need supplemental hot water anyhow. But we're going through water heaters every 7 years at $5 a whack times 8 heaters. So
$5,000.
$5,000 a whack times 8 heaters. But maybe a tankless water heater in our circulating domestic hot water system is a thought, especially when one of my concerns is that we have 2 propane hot water heaters now in our utility rooms, and they take up a lot of space, and there's not a whole lot of space left over for a heat pump water heater, nor is it a really big room, although it's probably big enough and throws off enough heat for a heat pump water heater to work. The other thought I had was that it's going to be tough to match sun power panels on our roof,
Yeah.
so that maybe we end up with, if we do flat panel hot water heaters, and they don't really need to match, and there's no way they ever would match because they're a different animal. The other thing I thought was that it wouldn't, if we put in solar hot water, Eversource doesn't get involved in counting that against us in as the amount of solar we can have on our roof. Right now, they count it against us as in kilowatt hours, but if it was hot water, they couldn't measure that, and they couldn't say, no, you can't do it because you've already exceeded your historical kilowatt hour usage for hot water. And I had one other comment here, but I can't even read my own writing. So just a interesting discussion, and probably wouldn't happen, but it's just one way to
Don,
get around the kilowatt hour historical limit. Go ahead.
With your solar hot water on your roof, do you have you must have a preheat tank in front of your water heater, correct?
Yes.
Or do they just go directly to your water heater?
Yeah,
Okay, you
no,
have a pre-
no, it's a preheat tank.
Yeah.
80-gallon preheat tank now, I think.
Yeah.
Which is just a water heater that's been modified.
Yeah, I have the same thing. We have the geothermal here, and when we run the air conditioning in the summertime, the waste heat that gets rejected from upstairs where we live gets applied to our hot water before it gets applied to the ground loop, and essentially we get free hot water all summer long. The preheat tank is at like 120 degrees,
Hmm.
and so
Nice.
the actual tank doesn't have to do any lift to
Yeah.
put hot water.
In my case, I do well during the summer, not during the winter. And since they only pay me a nickel per kilowatt hour for my excess usage, I've got a Marathon all plastic water heater that hopefully will last the rest of my life. And
There you
there's
go.
a value in that versus a heat pump water heater that's gonna crap
Yeah.
out when the tank rusts out.
All right,
Okay.
so have we completed 5A? Is that good?
I think we've exhausted sufficiently, and I appreciate the thought of a tankless water heater being an option for Button Hill, possibly for our circulating system, therefore opening up a little bit of space in our utility room. So that's a thought for me to consider and research. Thank you, Bill.
Okay. All right, moving on. 5B, discuss how to go about monitoring kilowatt hour usage of electrical heaters at the pump house. Do we have a separate, we don't have a separate meter for them, right? They're just part of the whole.
Right.
Can you just
So-
you could throw some meter on there, right? Just put clamp on
Yeah.
that meter and let it collect data.
Yeah, let it collect data and see how many watts it's using and how many hours. Yeah.
Yeah, usually you can get those pretty cheap, like $100, you know?
Well,
I've got a
found
device called a kilowatt that it actually has a plug. You plug it into an outlet and then you plug your device into the kilowatt, and
Yep.
it tells you right there how many watts are you using.
But he's probably up
But
to like
those
probably
heaters are likely wired directly into the panel. They're not plugged into
Yeah.
the wall,
they're
correct?
probably
right.
three-phase.
We'd have to use a CT and then somehow
Yep.
get access to that room to read it once or twice a year or whatever. Have to have somebody put in the CT, I guess.
Well, yeah, but if you put in an energy monitor with CTs, you
Yeah.
put in a Sense energy monitor. That's that's cheap. It's like $300 for a Sense energy monitor, and then
Well,
you'd have.
I've got a couple on my two heat pumps right now, but they max out at 1,000 kilowatt hours. And then they stop counting. And I just bought one that maxes out at 10,000 kilowatt hours for $20. So, or actually maybe
Well,
it's
That's why I'm
maybe it's-
suggesting a $300 one. They don't max out,
Mm.
yeah.
right? The Sense energy monitor is going to tell you what are you using. It doesn't care if you're using 10 kilowatt hours or 10,000. It's going to tell you what you're using every circuit. So
Where does that,
if we're
part of the
really
discussion
interested in doing that, maybe the town would spring for not energy monitored so that they would know as well, you know?
Well, that's a good comment, and that was part of the reason for the discussion, is to see if we can talk that if we could maybe find an energy monitor, maybe that's a good thing to talk to our energy guy about.
Yeah, that's true too. We can bring that up with John that,
And
we
you
don't
know, put
even
a
know
monitor in
what
there
our
and find
electric
out.
heaters are using. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think that the pump house would be great with a mini split in it. Okay.
Anybody else have anything else on 5B? Hearing none, we'll proceed to 5C. Discuss the potential return of passenger rail to Wellington. I was pretty psyched about this. Peter Tanaka sent me a brochure from some people that are trying to put passenger rail through this part of Connecticut to connect Springfield to New London. And essentially, with the completion of the Western Spur in Massachusetts, you'd be able to go from Wellington to Boston by train.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool.
If they put this in. Yeah, really cool.
Where
And
would they put the spur?
thought is,
I'm sorry.
the thought is that they would put a station down by Flat Penny on Route 74, somewhere in that neighborhood. We would have
Phelps
a train
Crossing, yeah.
station.
Yep.
Yeah, we would have a train station there. And the big thing we have going for us is the proximity to Route 84 and the commuter parking lot right in that location. So we do have a lot going for us as far as a potential location for a whistle stop. And the Board of Selectmen at their recent meeting took the proposal under advisement and voted in favor of it. So we are gonna see where things go. Really, it has nothing to do with the Wellington Sustainability and Energy Committee, other than I find trains to be a sustainable method of transport better than cars. And I just wanted to bring that up and let everybody know that this could happen. I'm tremendously excited about it. I hope it happens.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine the town would have to invest anything in it other than just allow them to do it, right?
Yeah, pretty much. We just have to say, sure, come on in, bring us
Yeah.
people with money. We're going to set up an ice cream stand right outside, you know? So,
See, maybe the EDC would like to hear about it.
well, yeah, they must know about it because Matt Clark was at the meeting where they all three voted in favor of it. So, but then again, it was Matt Clark. You know, you never know.
I had something I wanted to bring up, but I'm not sure where it would fit in. I sent,
As far as an agenda item, or you want to bring it up
yeah, as
now?
far as an agenda item. I sent
What do you
the
want to
three
do?
of you, some documents, some snippets out of the green energy news from neighbors.
Okay,
And-
let's make a motion to add it to the agenda. Can we? I will make a motion that we add an item 5E to new business discussion of Bill's recent finds on green energy news. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Is that Bill Bennell is a second?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of adding 5E, discuss, excuse me, discuss Bill Bennell's finds on green energy news. Please say aye.
I,
aye,
Bill, Bill Luciano, are you voting?
Sure,
Motion carries unanimously. Okay,
Bill,
5C, as far as passenger rail is concerned, I don't think there's much more to say. Anybody have anything else they want to add? Okay, 5D is my recent phone call with John Murrow, our town's energy broker. Bill, there's too many Bills in my world. John Murrow is our energy broker. He's also a tremendous asset. I talked with him at length, and he is very knowledgeable about energy, certainly energy procurement. He's in charge of energy procurement for the town, but he's also in charge of energy procurement for multiple towns in Eastern Connecticut. He does a lot of work with towns all over Eastern Connecticut. He lived in Bolton for years. He was the chair of Bolton's Energy Committee for a long time. He and his wife recently moved to Guilford. He just retired last month, but he's still active and still doing things, and he still wants to be involved. He now lives in Guilford, where he is also on their sustainability committee. He's just a tremendous resource. He can do every single thing that Titan Energy could do for us, including energy assessments of our buildings, which is something I'm really desperate to get. I would love to get an energy assessment on either Hall School or Center School or even the town garage. Any of those buildings, I would love to get an energy assessment on them and see what we can do to improve our energy picture there. And perhaps heat them with heat pumps and solar instead of using any kind of fossil fuels. Those are the kind of things that I really want to have an engineering analysis on, and he could provide that. So my thought was that we should invite him to our next scheduled meeting in June. Unless, Don, you were saying that you might want him to look at the Button Hill thing. I could actually email that to him and ask him to take a look at it and see what he has to say. But certainly I'd like to invite him to our next meeting. If you think it's worth having a special meeting in order to get some information on that ahead of time, I'd be willing to do that as well. It's up to the committee as a whole as to whether or not we can do a second meeting this month, but I'd be willing.
okay. I mean, I'm willing to do a second meeting. Part of me wants to try to find out what the hell the limits are on our historical kilowatt hour usage. before we have a really long discussion with John, but I'm sure there's a lot to be learned even with a short discussion, which will turn into a long discussion with John.
Yeah, yeah. When I first spoke to him, I thought that I was going to be on the phone for about a minute. 45 minutes later, I had to say, "Look, I got to let you go." So, absolutely. What I will make a motion that we invite John Murrow, our town's energy broker, to our next scheduled meeting of the WISE committee. Do I have a second?
One second.
Bill Bednell seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of inviting John Murrow to our next meeting, say aye. Aye.
Aye, sorry. Right in here. Okay.
Okay. Bill LaShawn, did you vote aye? You're muted.
I voted aye.
Bill LaShawn. Okay, thank you. Motion carried unanimously. Okay, 5E, Bill, you wanted to talk about your fines from Green Energy News.
Yeah, you guys can look at these at your leisure. Hope as long as they actually went through on the email that I just sent out about 10 minutes ago. But
I can see him, yeah.
there's a couple of really appropriate things to look at. One is Connecticut considers incentives to spur networked geothermal projects. And John, I think I showed you something on this that they used up in Massachusetts some months back, where they
Yes, in
some
Framingham.
villages,
Yep.
some neighborhoods were able to utilize geothermal more readily by doing it as a consortium or a group. And Eversource has shown an interest in developing a pilot project with that too. And there's also a House bill that's in process. that
I'm
would
not
create a
seeing that
grant.
in the stuff that you sent out, Bill. Where is that? Which?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't organize it very well. I scanned it on my printer and I ended up with 3 different scans.
Yeah.
So it's on one of the 3. I apologize for my disorganization with that, but I did it at the last second.
Yeah, you were saying though that it was heat pumps. I don't see anything in here about heat pumps.
Yeah. Connecticut considers incentives to spur network geothermal projects. Canary Media, I guess, is the ones who reported on it. And quote unquote, Connecticut could become the latest state to pursue networked geothermal systems as a way of cutting greenhouse gas emissions, improving public health, and reducing energy cost burdens for residents. State lawmakers are considering a bill, HB 6929, that would create a grant and loan program to support development of geothermal networks, which tap into energy stored in the earth and deliver heating and cooling to multiple buildings in one neighborhood. Eversource has shown interest in developing a pilot project and has taken preliminary steps to seek approval and to proceed, but specific legislation supporting geothermal networks would be more likely to galvanize action from utilities. That's the article.
I don't think you sent that to us, Bill.
Okay. Well, then the
If
next
you
one
could-
that I hopefully sent was contract to convert CT utility poles to EV charging stations
Yeah, I saw that one.
given to California and New York company. So San Francisco-based company that specializes in retrofitting utility poles to also serve as electric vehicle chargers has been chosen by Connecticut regulators to be part of an 18-month pilot program to expand charging station availability in the state. Volt Post announced its agreement with the Connecticut Public Utilities Regulatory Authority Wednesday morning. The company will deploy a total of 50 charging stations, which will include a total of 100 charging ports across Connecticut sites, will be located in both the UI company and Eversource Energy service areas. Exactly where the Volt Post chargers will be deployed hasn't been determined yet.
Yeah, that's exciting too. I got to tell you, Don, Earthlight Solar.
Yep.
I was leaving my house on Saturday morning. I had errands to go run. And when I got in my electric car, I realized I only had 40 miles on the battery and I had a 60-mile round trip facing me down.
Ooh,
So I said, oops, I should have plugged the car in on Thursday when I got back from my doctor's appointment. But I decided to take a look on my ChargePoint app and see if anybody had added any ChargePoint chargers in the area. Earthlight Solar over in Ellington, they have an electric car fleet that their salespeople must use when they go out on sales calls. So they have about 20 slow chargers, the kind that I have installed here at my house.
yeah.
And they also have 2 super fast ChargePoint chargers in their parking
Sure.
lot,
Wow.
ready to use. So I went over to there. I plugged in. I started my ChargePoint session. I sat in my car for 20 minutes playing solitaire on my phone. And when I had a decent enough charge, I had like 100 miles on my battery, which is way better than 40. I unplugged and went and did my errands. Came home and plugged the car in.
Nice.
Fantastic. And I kudos to Earthlight Solar. They've earned massive respect for me for having 2 ChargePoint super fast chargers. They didn't need to do that. They plug their cars in overnight, and the salespeople have those cars all day. They didn't need to put in ChargePoint super fast chargers, but they did. So kudos.
What do you
to
have, a
them.
level 2, John?
Yeah, I have a level 2. It takes about half a day or so to charge the battery fully.
I'm still trying to get a rebate on my level 2 because they took down the manual rebate form and they're upgrading for our convenience and they still ain't got it done. They're hoping to have it online in the middle of the month. Yeah, right.
I saw a bunch of Tesla charging stations going in by the truck stop up there on Ruby
That's
Road
right.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Ralph Toulis's property that they're putting a solar farm and Tesla chargers on. Yeah, when I was on PZC, I asked them if they were going to put just Teslas or if they're going to have the other charger that everybody else uses. I'm not sure if they're putting super fast chargers for cars like mine or yours, Bill or Don. But I believe they said that they were going to get at least a couple of those. But Tesla, Tesla does the overkill thing where they come in and put in 20 chargers, even if there's no business for them. They want their
Well,
brand
there's,
out there.
they got the highway right there, so it's
Yeah.
bound to be.
Exactly. There's bound to be somebody going by. And the way that they put it, I think it was Phil from Down East Green, I think is the company that's putting that in. The way that he put it was that there's essentially a charger desert between Hartford and Sturbridge. There's several charges in Sturbridge. There's several charges, in the Hartford area, Manchester area, but nothing along Route 84 in the spot where they're putting them. And so they're really psyched to get those in there. And having the solar panels right there with it is really going to be a selling point for people to stop and get a charge. So
There is a program that I've been telling people about called State of Charge, and it's on YouTube. And the fellow has been doing it for over a decade. And he has everything that you need to know about chargers. So in one of his programs, he brought up how they're coming out with NACS to Tesla converters so that you can plug into a Tesla as long as you have your own converter to, connect to your car.
Yeah.
So even though it's all Teslas, it's still could be a very valuable resource as long as people are aware that they can purchase converters to use.
Right, and there are more Tesla chargers than there are ChargePoint chargers that I can use. So yeah, something like that would truly be handy.
The other thing is when you were referring to a charger desert, at times I've just gone on the internet and looked up EV charging near me, and there's quite a few placements around the store's campus.
Oh yeah, that's true too. Yeah, I had forgotten about those. Yeah,
they're not on the highway, but
right.
In a pinch, there are other places, and it's becoming a lot more commonplace to have chargers, where you'd least expect them.
I checked my ChargePoint app only because I find ChargePoint to be the most reliable charger out there. There's two other main charger companies, Electrify America and EVgo. But I often find that there's been vandalism or the chargers just aren't working at Electrify America stops and at EVgo.
Yeah,
So
Electrify
I've
America
had problems
stops.
with both of those. ChargePoint I've never had any problems with.
The Electrify America stops in both Buckland and Bank of America and East Hartford. I have never
Yeah.
found any vandalism, although there has been before the spring, there was commonly one or two chargers in either one of those locations that were down. Now they've
Yeah.
been running at 100% for months.
Okay, the last time I was at Electrify America was probably 6 months ago or so.
Yeah.
4 of the chargers were down, and the other 4 were in use, and people were lined up
You're right.
behind them to get in. And I was like, "What am I going to do? Sit here for an hour?"
Yeah, it's all improved.
Yeah,
They
I
did
drove to my buddy's house and plugged in with my slow charger.
yeah, they did a major upgrade during I would say February, March.
Okay.
They did a major upgrade. So I had
All right, I'll get
another
a look at it.
article that was about the power companies joining a fossil fuel lobby, undercutting climate targets.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, really, huh? Boston Globe. Last year, 2 major energy companies working in Massachusetts and Connecticut joined the ranks of an innocuous sounding group, the Consumer Energy Alliance.
Oh, yeah.
According to financial documents, the alliance was formed and is operated by a fossil fuel lobbying group based in Houston. Its stated purpose includes the promotion and defense of natural gas. Across the country, the alliance has fought the kinds of climate policies that are taking root in Massachusetts. That makes it incredibly troubling that both Eversource, one of the state's largest gas and electric utilities, and Avangrid, offshore wind developer and the parent company of Berkshire Gas, became members of the alliance last year.
Yeah, that's something for Pura, huh?
Yeah. Except it's
If
in
I was
Mass.
on Pura, I'd be saying, "Hey, Eversource, what are you doing?"
Yeah, really. And then there's another one for Connecticut cities and towns push for greener, less expensive power. Connecticut's version of aggregation could be particularly ambitious, following a model used in California and New Hampshire. The approach allows cities and towns to choose between a basic aggregation program in which a hired energy broker negotiates for electricity on behalf of residents, and a system in which multiple municipalities band together to form a larger aggregator that could handle the process of procuring power itself. In its first year, New Hampshire's aggregation program saved ratepayers in participating communities about $14 million and created a revenue of $10 million for reinvestment.
Nice.
Plus, lawmakers waived bulk energy buying plan. I'm not sure what that. I guess that refers to another article. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I like the church in Tallinn going solar.
Yeah. Yep.
That's pretty cool. And the Connecticut General Assembly is trying to ban the use of gas-powered leaf blowers.
Right.
Man, people are going to be up in arms on that one.
Well,
I don't
it's
know why we just use batteries. I have a battery-powered leaf blower. It's fantastic.
I know, and basically, I think that the hardship will be for the landscape contractors to try to keep enough batteries charged. Although, if you use, I use the technology from Ego, and I'm able to charge 7.5 amp hour battery in under an hour.
Right.
So
and,
I mow my front
if they
lawn,
had a
I
little
take lunch, and then I mow my back lawn.
a little solar station in the trailer that they pull up, the landscaping company pulls up in a trailer, right? They dump everything out of the trailer. They just wheel over a little solar station into the sun, and it charges new batteries, and then they go ahead and use their battery powered equipment. A battery goes dead, they walk over to the charger, pull off a fresh battery, and put their dead battery back on charge.
The other concept could be that they just have a generator running continuously, but it would be one
yeah, burning
generator.
fossil fuels, but
It would be one generator. It would be at the trailer,
Hmm.
and it would be recharging batteries throughout the day, and it
Yeah.
would be cutting down on the ambient noise, and also on the multiple sources of combustion. Which, when you have a
Right.
larger generator, it's going to run a little bit more efficiently than all these little 2-cycle motors.
Right,
So
and
that-
it'd likely be a 4-cycle motor as opposed to a 2-cycle.
Yeah.
The particulate matter that the 2 cycles emit is really terrible. Every
Yep.
hour that you run a 2-cycle motor is equivalent to driving your car for 6 months.
Mm.
That's how much soot, carbon, and particulate matter is thrown into the atmosphere
Yeah.
by 2-cycle motors. They've got to be banned. I'm glad that they're doing that.
I think they've
Good
already-
luck getting it passed. It's not going to be easy. That's an uphill climb.
I know in Florida they're relying a lot on electrical powered landscape equipment.
It would be cheaper too, especially if you had if you're going to run a generator, right? What's a generator going to cost? $1,000, $1,200 for a cheap one.
Well,
You might as well get a couple of solar panels. You might as well put a couple of solar panels, mount them on a hand truck, wheel it into the sun, and charge your batteries with it.
The problem is it would probably only charge one battery for that time because
What?
If the sun is out.
2 450-watt solar panels.
Yeah.
Are gonna generate quite a bit of power.
in an hour.
If the sun is out.
If the sun's out, yeah.
Yeah, they
But-
they need to come up with there's improvements happening with battery packs every day. And John, you're familiar with who's that guy considering something, or the bald guy who
All things considered,
no it's an energy program. It's on YouTube.
Oh, undecided.
Undecided. And there's also Danny from 2-Bit Da Vinci. He does the
Yep.
same thing that Undecided does. And
Right.
just last week they were talking about paper batteries. I mean, their
Wow.
battery technology is just going wild, and
Yeah.
they're exploring
Yeah.
so many different options. And when you have companies like BYD in China manufacturing, electric cars, handfuls by the minute, and CATL making all the batteries for all the electric cars in China, they're really on a fast road to improving batteries by order, as opposed to just how quickly they can be recharged. Okay, Bill.
Okay.
Anything else?
There was another one about solar power and a company that's put a 750 kW rooftop solar project on their roof. And then there was another one about the Tallinn Church. And also one about Massachusetts trying to turn EV into grid batteries. And I think that subject was explored when the Lightning came out, and they had a 750 7.5 kW generator inside of the Ford Lightning. And if you left your truck plugged in, like in Texas, they could draw on your truck in energy shortages, because Texas has deregulated or unregulated power systems, which is why they can sell kWs for hundreds of dollars during power outages. There's no governing of it. But the power capability of EVs with large battery packs can really be a source to the utilities in off hours.
Yeah, I've heard about that, but there's also limitations, like my car, I don't believe I can plug my car into my house and use it as backup power because my
Not
car
every
wouldn't
car,
allow me to
no.
draw the amperage that I would need to run my house.
Yep.
So it's
I
interesting,
think the
but
power company's talking about sucking the power, aggregating it, and then,
then
using it
distributing it,
as needed.
yeah. Well,
That's
if
basically
I have
everything
my
that's
car
that
plugged in
is.
and they're gonna start using the power that's in it, I hope they're gonna pay me for it, right?
Well, yeah, that's
Yeah.
another part of the program.
It's all part of the smart grid if they ever get that going. I've heard talk about that.
Yeah, yeah,
During a brownout, you plug your car in and the utility will draw off your car to feed the grid,
Mm-hmm.
stabilize it.
yep.
It's very good.
It's yeah, and it works out better for the utility because they don't have to pay the high cost of bringing a peaker plant online.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They would pay a lower cost to the people who own batteries, and everybody makes out.
Yeah, a lot of smart things could happen.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. Are we all set with 5E?
Mhm.
yeah,
All right. Moving on. Approval of minutes. Don, did you distribute the minutes? I don't
no,
remember seeing
I
them.
didn't. Have to go
Think you can do it
online
right
and,
now? Do you have them written up? Do you want to do it right now, or
let me see.
we could table it until next month if you don't have it ready? It's okay.
Let's go new email, attach file, browse PC. Wise committee, minutes, date modified. Oop, computer slow. 4/16, wise minutes from 4/14. Okay. Now I get everybody down here. J, enter B, down, enter. Okay. Send. Okay. I just sent them out.
Terrific. I received them. I'm going to go over them. I'm going to read them real quick.
Yeah. Not looking forward to listening to an hour and a half meeting in order to write the minutes next time.
I hear you, man.
Yeah. I already forgotten that Tim Sadler had done a discussion with regards to his solar
Yeah.
proposal.
Yep.
And look at all those numbers there. I was pretty close. 226,000, 35,000.
Okay.
I'm okay with the ones I wrote.
I'm okay with them.
Yeah, I'm okay with them too. Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as written.
I'll second.
Bill Bennell seconded. Any further discussion? A motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes as written, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. present to speak. Again, there's nobody here.
And I just want to add that I modified the agenda to put that in 2 places in the agenda in case, I think the selectmen do that now, and that's kind of a nice idea. In case somebody shows up
Sure.
late to a meeting, so
Sure,
that's my.
absolutely.
And then you get to correspondence,
Correspondence, anything?
and I checked and there's nothing.
Okay, we
So,
didn't have any actual physical mail, but I did get an email from Paige Dostie at Titan Energy, which is what prompted me to call John Murrah. She was just checking in to see if we had any information about the Cattle Rock property. When I spoke to John Murrow, he said that he could also consult about the Cattle Rock property, that we really don't need Titan Energy for anything. So not quite sure why Peter decided that Titan Energy should talk to us. I'd much prefer to talk to the person that's already got a contract with the town. And he seems quite capable. Yes, Bill.
John, what were you saying about cattle? What is it, property?
Cattle Rock, CADLE. There's a
Okay.
property that's in, part of it is in Wellington, a small part, and the larger part of it is in Ashford.
Okay.
And it's a mess. The prior owners allowed dumping to take place there.
Oh, boy.
So there's all kinds of stuff just dumped all over the place, and it's a real mess. So it's an EPA cleanup site. It's getting cleaned up. One potential use for it would be to put in a solar farm.
Okay.
And we would get, direct lease payments for leasing the land to them, split between Wellington and Ashford based on, percentage of property and what town it's in. So that's something that we want to look at. But again, Titan Energy really doesn't bring anything to the table that our own energy broker doesn't already have. And I feel that he's being that he's already under contract with the town. He's a much better choice for us to discuss this stuff with.
okay,
So that was correspondence.
Yeah, correspondence from me just was a note from Paige Dostie that I wanted to
Yeah.
let you know about.
okay, then we go to the most important part of the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Woohoo! Motion to adjourn.
Second,
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I, Don.
I at 8:35.
Motion carries. Hey, everybody, thank you so much. Great meeting tonight.
I'll try to get these documents, these news blurbs out in a little more efficient manner. Save some time.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you an email, Bill, requesting that you kind of give me a synopsis of what you talked about, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So I
Yep.
can just paste that into the minutes. It doesn't need